My name is Christina Zampas, and I'm an international human rights lawyer. And I was the director of the Europe program at the Center for Reproductive Rights. And I filed the case of Z versus Poland, along with the Federation for Women and Family Planning and the University of Warsaw Human Rights Clinic. The Center for Reproductive Rights is an international human rights organization dedicated to using international human rights law to advance and protect women's reproductive rights around the globe. There are two programs, one in the United States and an international program. And my role was the director of the Europe program. And my primary responsibility was working with organizations in Europe to use human rights both at the national level and at the regional human rights level. Of the cases that we've worked on against Poland at the European Court of Human Rights were cases where women actually tried to get redress at the national level, and all that redress failed. So hence we went to the European Court of Human Rights and filed a claim there. And we filed it at the European Court of Human Rights because it is the regional human rights system for Europe. It has a very strong enforcement mechanism, and recent decisions by the court against Poland regarding access to reproductive health care were positive. International human rights lawyers that have been working in the reproductive rights field have a keen understanding of the importance of working with medical professionals, and the collaboration with Global Doctors for Choice is but one clear example of that. Recently, though, the courts at the regional human rights level in Europe, the European Court of Human Rights, has also recognized the importance of medical organizations, professional medical organizations, where it actually referred to a guideline issued by the International Federation of Gynecologists and Obstetricians in its listing of sources of interpreting laws. And it was the first time it ever did this, and it did this in a recent case, again against Poland, regarding access to genetic prenatal examinations. So it shows that there's a growing recognition also from the bench of the importance of international medical associations. Medical and health experts played very critical roles in this case, and I think in all of the reproductive rights cases that the Center for Reproductive Rights brings. First of all, they help us to understand the medical issues, the medical terminology. Just to begin with, looking at a medical file can be daunting for a non-medical professional. Second, they help us, and very importantly, they help us to understand the medical standards and the standards of care for patients. In this case, doctors at Global Doctors for Choice helped us to understand the medical standard of care for treatment of colitis of a pregnant woman. We can have positive decisions in the courts. We can end up having good laws and good regulations as a result of those decisions or through other legislative initiatives. But when it comes down to it, if they're not being implemented in the operating room, in the counseling room with patients, they're just a piece of paper. So really, it's actually imperative to have doctors' involvement, and getting them involved from the beginning is critical. Help from the public health perspective, and in this case, it was Joanna Michtal, was critical because it helped us to articulate what the problem is in the whole of society. So this one case represents one woman's situation, but in fact, this is happening throughout Poland. Using both doctors and public health professionals together is absolutely critical in understanding the whole of the situation in a particular country and as it applied to an individual person. So that in this case, in Z, we know that it wasn't that this is one unfortunate and grave human rights violation that happened to an individual. But we also want the court to understand that it's happening regularly. Actually, I truly believe that most of the time, the human rights standards, the individual rights approach that human rights law uses, and the public health perspective usually, in most cases, are complementary and go hand in hand. In terms of working with doctors and public health professionals, specifically on this case, we didn't experience any tensions. I think more interaction between doctors and lawyers generally would be useful. And just to have a really open and clear communication on the different roles that we play and addressing the thorny issues that may come up. But I do think that Global Doctors for Choice is a great forum where lawyers and doctors can actually come together in trainings and in workshops where we can learn from each other and understand the value of each other's work.